Hello, today we're speaking with Ethan Pierce, and Ethan is a director of Crypto Assets Institute and co-founder of NFT Factory. Hello, Ethan.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Thank you. And you're located in Paris, France.
Correct. Yep.
So, I think that many millions of people do not understand yet what is NFT.
So yeah, the NFT thing is really interesting. A lot of people that have maybe seen it or seen a little bit have probably just seen artwork on Twitter from these communities that have built projects that are very interesting in their own right. It's very much a digital collectibles subject.
Uh-huh.
But the reality is there's all kinds of other ways that have nothing to do with that visual side of things that are interesting for corporates. So an NFT stands for non-fungible token. Without getting into the technical side of these things, if we just look at the two pieces, non-fungible means unique. So if I hand you a dollar bill or 10 ounces of gold, those are fungible assets. One is equal to another one. You don't really care which one you get. However, like a diamond, for example, would be a non-fungible asset, or a painting, or a lithograph that's a numbered version of a painting, or anything that exists, even if it looks a lot like another version, but it in the details it is unique. We call those non-fungible. So that's all that means. It just means that something is unique. And then the token side, when we're looking at crypto, and really when you get into Web3 and NFTs, you don't have to care about crypto at all. But it's important to understand that there are some crypto words and concepts that are here, because that is what's powering the utility that we can get through these things. And so a token is the word that we use when we don't want to say coin. If we're talking about cryptocurrencies, then we often talk about coins like Bitcoins.
Yeah.
And so very often that small unit of measure that we would use on a unit level, we would say something is a coin. When we want to refer to a tokenized asset, but we don't want to call it a coin because it's not a currency model, then we use the word token. So all that means is it's a digital asset. And so if you put it all together, you get that it is a unique digital asset. So every single one of these things that we're going to talk about potentially as NFTs exists in a digital fashion. And even if there were several that looked exactly the same individually, they are unique because their digital identity, however that's stored on a blockchain, that is a unique thing. So you could have 10 NFTs that digital collectibles that look exactly the same, but one of them is going to be number one of them is going to be number two, one of them is going to be number three. So they are still actually unique in that regard, or they could be completely unique things visually, which would matter. And then if we look at the other use cases that we will get into with some of your other questions, we could look at, for example, a diploma for your MBA. Well, that can exist as that is a unique asset. It is not only unique in the sense that it is a diploma from a specific program from a specific university, but because it is your diploma, that makes it very much non-fungible. There is only one of those that relates to you getting that degree from that place. We can look at all kinds of different models, but that's what NFT breaks down to, is this unique digital asset.
And also, I know that you are an investor in Web3. And how do you define Web3? What is it?
Yeah, so if we look at if we want to talk about Web3, then what was Web 1? And Web 1 was really this read-only internet that we had in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, where you were just getting information. We still get a lot of that today, where we're just reading things that someone else has published, but most of that was large publishers, large entities, before we moved into Web 2, which was really this read and write web, where people could create content. So this could be somebody with a blog, this could be actually this podcast, everything related to people being able to, on social media or with e-commerce, the ability for people to use tools that allowed them to create the content that was on the internet. And that brings us to a Web 2 concept. Today with Web 3, a lot of what we want to see is people are going to continue to use YouTube to publish their videos, or Instagram or TikTok or Snap for those kind of things, for videos and for chatting. Maybe Substack if they want to publish a newsletter. We're going to have all these centralized tools that still really matter for distribution and discoverability. But what gets really interesting is if we add in on this community layer, what is separating a content creator from their community, and or what is maybe a brand and their consumers or the fans of that brand. Potentially there are intermediaries that are there in the Web 2 world. Like, for example, if you post your videos on YouTube, well, you need to have YouTube to distribute them, but also YouTube is the point of contact with your community. You don't have their email addresses, you don't have their phone numbers, you don't have any way to contact them except through publishing through YouTube.
Mhm.
Well, what we want to see is we want to remove that intermediary layer where you're still publishing your videos on YouTube, maybe in order to promote things and to be discoverable. But now we want to have other tools that put us in maybe a direct relationship with our community. That can be an NFT that allows them to connect directly to other tools that you use. That can be social tokens that allow them to follow a specific creator or brand. But the point is, we're going to have these lots of different, again, when we look at some use cases, we'll see some examples that make this more clear, but we'll have versions where basically in the relationship with our community, we're on kind of a one-to-one thing. It's a first degree relationship, whereas we don't have these intermediaries of the platforms. I think what we will really see moving forward is Web 2 plus Web 3 for quite a number of years, where people are using these centralized platforms to do whatever it is they're doing with content creation or distribution, and then layering in Web 3 as a way to have that more community engaged idea, more decentralized tool set, maybe a little bit more deplatforming protection, things that kind of protect the individual creator from the negative effects that might happen with, or if something goes wrong at a social media, for example, like with Twitter and people's doubts right now about what's going on there. No matter how that might turn out, there are people who are very concerned about the fact that this is the only way they can interact with their community on Twitter. So we have this problem of content creation and community being on the same platform. Well, content creation should stay there, but the community should be powered through Web3.
Mhm. And what does NFT Factory do?
Sure, the NFT Factory. This is fun. This is my current big discussion that I love. So 130 co-founders from the Web3 ecosystem, primarily in France, which actually will make a lot of sense when we look at art and luxury and fashion and video games, industries that are tremendously French in terms of the companies and brands that are well known in those spaces. But more importantly, with these 130 co-founders, we're talking about people from Ledger, from SoRare, from the Sandbox, Artifact, Blackpool, Ariane, what else? So many amazing things like Dogamy and others, where there's a tremendous amount of really interesting and important companies in Web3 that are actually French. And so leaders in their spaces like Ledger and Sorare and Sandbox as three great examples. So all of these people kind of came together over the past year and a half through a bunch of conversations that were started by Jean-Michel Payon, who's the chief of staff of Ledger, and John Karp, who is well known in the NFT and entrepreneurial space in France, is also the founder of the Non-Fungible Conference. Well, they were having these discussions, and people just kind of got pulled into them, I guess, to talk about how do we build the Web3 ecosystem more deliberately. So the NFT Factory just opened. It is a 400 square meter digital but physical art gallery. So physical art gallery for digital art. So it's like 70 screens on the first floor of this amazing space across the street from the world's largest contemporary art museum at Centre Pompidou in France, in Paris, where the idea is people discover the space because it's very visual and it is this NFT that they kind of know with, you know, images, whether it's motion graphics or whatever the kind of like the stuff that people might know from the PFP type projects from Twitter, you know, or things like that are really cool. People come in and they have questions about, well, what is this? We help them understand what an NFT is, especially on the digital art side. Maybe help them set them up with a wallet, airdrop them their first NFT. So now they're a user. Now they've kind of started the process. Then really the next mission of what the NFT Factory really is kind of takes over, which is workshops and education to help democratize and pull these people further in to understanding how Web3 can matter. Maybe they create content, maybe they're an artist, maybe they're a brand, but to help them take all of that and to engage more and to start building their own projects and to be able to really use these Web3 tools in a way that matters for their activity. And then that takes us to really just continuing to build out the Web3 ecosystem in Paris and then elsewhere as we scale up the activity, helping projects launch, helping startups in the Web3 space really scale and succeed. basically by bringing the 130 kind of co-founders, the reach of their networks and their experience, as well as the 1,000 members that have joined through the NFT that we issued for membership. It makes really one of the largest professional Web3 organizations in the world, and we're bringing that to bear on this current problem of onboarding the next billion users into Web3.
And what is the connection between Web3, NFT, and metaverse?
Sure, great questions. So in depending on the example, there is nothing to do with, the Web3 does not have to be metaverse doesn't have to be, that we can separate these discussions. But if we really look at it, Web3, these solutions that we are using for a bunch of the use cases that we can talk about with events and ticketing, or digital collectibles, or digital identity questions, everything around supply chain and authenticity, things around video games, everything around fashion and luxury, and all the things that we can work with there in these spaces, academic credentials or your digital identity, all of that stuff. In order for it to be Web3, the tools that we are bringing to bear are tokenization, so blockchain and token-powered tools. And so NFTs are one of the main ways that we are going to do that, by basically tokenizing those things, whether it's your academic diploma, whether it's your registration for your car, whether it's a luxury or high-end watch or item that you've purchased that now comes with a digital twin NFT that proves that it's authentic and proves that it is yours. All of these different models that we can look at, all the digital collectible space, which is huge, because collectibles are huge. So the digital version of those matters as well. And that's really, I think, the place where we can then connect the others. So that's Web3 powered by NFTs. If we want to talk about metaverse stuff, I'm a bit of a contrarian, where I don't define metaverse topics as simply VR or AR powered things. I don't think that's true. I think if you look at Instagram or TikTok or Snap, we already have metaverses where people are taking pictures or videos of their life, of their moments. They're applying filters, so they are digitally modifying the reality that they are living, and then they are sharing that with their community, with their friends in the world. They're chatting with them, they're leaving comments, they're interacting. And for me, that is very much a metaverse concept, where the physical reality is meeting the digital reality. If we look at something like Roblox or Minecraft or Fortnite, these are worlds where not just kids are basically, they're spending a ton of time creating their personas, their identities, how they look, how they move, the assets that they have, the things that they use, playing these games, interacting with other real people in these games or these environments. I also believe that that is very much a metaverse concept, regardless of whether or not we are at a virtual reality or augmented reality idea. So that's how I would define it. How do those things all mix together? Well, in the current things we have, like with the Roblox or Fortnite or any of these virtual worlds or gaming worlds, or even something like Pokemon Go, or even the stuff we do on Instagram, all of those digital assets, the things that we collect, the things that we earn, the things that we buy, are locked into that world, because the current technology that is used is specific to that particular game or space. Web3 can break that open, so that now, if that Nike shirt that you bought in Fortnite was an NFT instead of just a digital asset locked inside of Fortnite, well, now if Fortnite shares the same infrastructure as Pokemon Go or Grand Theft Auto or Roblox, you could go to any of those places and wear the same NFT shirt on your avatar, simply because that NFT, that asset, is able to follow you anywhere where you're connected to that same infrastructure. And so for me, that's where things do come together, is when all of these places where you have digital assets and digital collectibles, if those become NFTs, well, then the next step is those NFTs can interact, they can cross borders into other worlds, so that if you're playing a different game, or if you're using Meta with Facebook or whatever other metaverse that you happen to be in, if those assets are shared, you can move in between those spaces and have the same identity, the same avatar, the same digital assets, thanks to the way that NFTs make that happen.
And if I'm a big or medium-sized company, how much money do I need if I want to start using NFT or Web3 to start playing with this? At least like 100,000 euro, 500,000 euro, or just, yeah.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If this is about brand marketing, if it's about community engagement, if you have an event that you're doing and you want to give everybody who comes to the event an NFT, and then they can go to your website and access special content or discounts or VIP reserved kind of exclusive things, thanks to them having that NFT in their digital wallet.
Yeah.
Well, those are not actually very complicated things to make happen. There are many more complicated versions that people can do, but for stuff like that, the numbers are getting very small because you can mint NFTs for free now on many of the platforms. You just have to know what you're doing. The artwork, if you're having something visual, well, you have to have somebody design that. The strategy around doing this right, and then maybe if you're doing something that's integrating with a website or some other tool that has, where your wallet is accessing that, so it can be, that particular platform can check to see what NFTs you have in your wallet so that they can provide you with these exclusive benefits. Each of those things doesn't really cost much. The most expensive thing at this point is probably the strategy side of it, because the brands don't understand this. It's a very new subject.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of time involved potentially in talking with
Yes.
executives, the leaders on the brand and marketing side of this, or the people that are working with the products themselves from the product marketing, the technology team that might have to integrate this if it's internalized or if they outsource it. But I mean, we're not talking about millions of dollars for these things. These can be a project can be launched for thousands, let alone hundreds of thousands. But obviously, the more sophisticated, the more the interactions are with the technology, we are talking about tens of thousands, to be able to do something correct. I would say the biggest piece, however, that costs is not directly related to the NFT Web3 piece. It's really just going to be about the strategy side, and then the rest of the company's teams that are doing the marketing of the event or the creation of this tool, or the stuff that you just have to pay for whenever you launch a new product or service anyways, except this just happens to be an NFT. So the NFT piece costs this, but maybe a lot of the other stuff around it might cost as well. I think it would really depend on what kind of project you're wanting to do. But today you could launch an NFT for free in an hour on these platforms. But obviously, as a brand, you're going to do something that's more deliberate, more scaled up. So you're going to be putting resources into that, and obviously that can reach the tens of thousands quickly, but it doesn't have to be ridiculous on a budget level to do very interesting Web3 powered projects now.
And do I understand correct that you invest in Web3? So as an investor, based on which criteria do you make your choice? How do you decide to invest in this project or not to invest in this project?
So when we're looking at Web3 stuff, we need to divide the two kind of things that exist right now that are investable. One are projects. Yeah. These are created by artists or entrepreneurs that want to build a community. Yes. So a lot of this is this artwork that you've seen on maybe on Twitter of, people hear about CryptoPunks or any of these other kind of projects that have interesting communities, or that are doing things like, some of them are around sustainable development, some of them are around digital marketing, some of them are around diversity or all kinds of different, really whatever it is that motivates somebody to build a community. They're building an NFT project around that, which is primarily these digital art pieces that they're collecting and that basically power this community. That as a project is one thing. And then over here, we have startups that are building Web3 technologies. They're building the stuff that are powering everything. So those are completely different subjects. If we're talking about Web3 projects that are, NFT communities, well, a lot of that's going to be based on, what is the DNA of the team? Are they actually entrepreneurs that have built things before? So they're going to know how to leverage the kind of capital they might raise if 10,000 people back one of these projects, and all of a sudden they now have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of capital to leverage to do what the community exists to do. What is their experience that says they're going to do that well? Because one of the problems we've seen with some of these NFT projects is people have never dealt with these kind of budgets or having to deploy that kind of capital to accomplish tasks. So they have not gone well. So I think there's a question there that really looks at team, of what they're going to do, and then the community that is forming around that. Is it large enough to really back a project, and so that the project can really raise enough capital to do the stuff it wants to do? And then what is it that it's wanting to do? Does that subject interest you? Are you interested in backing a project that is working on that particular problem, whatever that problem might happen to be? And so that's those projects. If we're looking at startups, that's a much longer discussion, but it's really, for me, no different than the regular discussion of investing in startups. Who's the team? Again, what are they building at that, in terms of historically, and what are they working on now? What brings them to this place? Does this solution need to exist? Because sometimes people build wonderful things that don't really need solved or don't have a large enough. The problem is it big enough in terms of a community or need to require the solution, which means it's not going to scale very well if that's not there. And then I think one of the biggest ones that people often miss in building startups, but also maybe on the project side, is timing. Very often people are too early or too late, because either the market's not there yet, so they're too early, and they're going to spend a lot of capital telling people that this thing should exist and that they should care about it. And probably, maybe if they don't last long enough, somebody else will come along and build the solution that people use, because this company spent all its money telling everybody it needed to exist. Or they come too late and they're the second or third or 25th version of something that's already done well. So timing is super important, that you don't show up too early, a little early, but not super early, and you don't show up too late, because otherwise you don't really leverage that opportunity at its right moment in time.
And one of my favorite questions: if I'm a big company, I have a lot of money, I want to invest into Web3 or NFT, how can I make my choice? Because I'm not an expert in NFT. And how can I choose contractor, company, whoever, based on which criteria to do something for me?
Yeah, so I think
or I should come to you and you can recommend someone.
Well, so actually that is kind of the answer. The answer with anything when you're trying to spend money is to find advisors that you trust, because obviously everybody's trying to sell you something. And in crypto and Web3, this is a gold rush. So lots of people are selling stuff that they barely understand, or that maybe is not really very good as a solution. So you need to be careful of that. There are plenty of people. This is always the case. It's not just about crypto and NFTs. We see it all the time with social media, people advising social media, advisory services, or we saw it with e-commerce. We've seen it with mobile stuff, everything along the way. When you need advice to learn how to do something, people show up who want to make money off of that, and that's fantastic. But you need to evaluate whether or not they actually can provide the value they are offering. So starting with the advisors that you already trust and building a network of people who can help make things work is super important. I think if you don't really know anything, and if a video like this or these kind of discussions, maybe you see someone like me speak at a big conference like Web Summit or the Next Web or Slush or something like that, where at a general tech conference, or you're like, okay, I need to know more about that topic. I think the first step is to get the important people together in a company that need to understand this, and to do a workshop, which is a lot of what I do. Executive workshops to help executives really to help the deciders in a company understand these concepts enough that they can make informed decisions on who they are choosing to help them and what they actually want to build and deploy in this new space. I think that education component is super important, and people like to kind of speed fast it a little too quickly. Which means there may be, if you can't define what the blockchain is and what an NFT is, and if you can't list some of those use cases and some of the examples of how it has worked and how it has not worked recently, then probably you need to take some time to do that. Bring somebody in who can explain that to you, so that now you're equipped. It's not a technical discussion. It's about understanding the concepts so that you can then take your expertise and apply it to this new medium, to these new tools. I think that's the first step. And then really leveraging that network of advisors to use the right people who can build things correctly for the right price, not necessarily cheap, but also not necessarily the most expensive. People who are able to provide value and really, you know, the right results, hopefully, for what you're looking to do as you start to experiment in this space and start to deploy solutions. Always go to the people you trust, or that you are learning from, and build out from there. Because otherwise, if you kind of just answer the email or phone call from somebody selling you something, very often in new technology adoption kind of cycles, you're not necessarily talking to the people who are trying to help you. They're probably just trying to sell something, maybe from a good place, but are they the best person to do that for you?
Is there something important that we didn't discuss, but which should be mentioned about Web3 or NFT? Or
No, I
maybe the
think,
future of these technologies, what to expect in the future?
yeah. So, well, I think it's what's really interesting is, you know, depending on how long you've been around innovation, we started identifying ourselves with our phone number, our home phone number, a
Yeah.
while ago. Then we went to email addresses as
Yes.
our unique identifier. So when we sign into most services, it's our email address. Now, a lot of people use their mobile number, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They don't even use email at all, or if possible, not at all, as little as possible. And so between email address and mobile phone number, that's our current identifying thing that we use everywhere. Well, the next wave of this is going to be our digital identity powered through our digital assets wallet. The application, the tool that we use that holds all of our NFTs or social tokens or whatever those digital assets are that we have collected, that we have purchased, that we have earned, that we have, however, we have gotten these things together. And those identify our interests and the things that we want to connect to. So moving forward, very much when we want to connect, you know, if I go to the New Balance store and I want to, you know, get a discount, I
Yeah.
will be able to in the future connect with the QR code for my mobile application for my digital wallet.
Yeah.
They'll scan that and they'll see, oh, you've got one of our New Balance NFTs. We'll give you 10% off discount, or, you know, because it works like a rewards thing or a loyalty thing. Or even better, I could go to the Nike store and I can also scan my wallet there, and they're going to say, oh, you don't have anything from Nike, but you have some stuff from New Balance. We'd love to give you 10% off in the store today for you to try some Nike products.
Mhm.
So the ability for us to self-identify based on the things we want to share, instead of the data that's collected, not necessarily with our consent, that we cannot necessarily control its existence. This self-identification through our digital wallets changes everything in digital marketing, especially in a GDPR compliant, personally identifiable information lacking world, because we're getting rid of all that PII through GDPR compliance. We're going to move to a model where people self-identify. This is super important. This idea that digital identity through a digital assets wallet will power so much of these things, so that we can do everything from, if it's a Breitling watch that now comes with an NFT that proves not only that the watch is authentic, but that it currently belongs to you, that NFT, you can connect to the website with your digital wallet, and you can see all the service that you've done on that particular watch. You can connect to the private members area and trade that watch to someone else using the NFT. All of these private benefits, you got the same thing you're seeing with sports teams now, or with other stuff, to where brands, fashion and cosmetics and luxury brands that are providing their communities with NFTs that identify that they were present at an event or at a specific moment in that idea. So now their digital identity involves this little tiny piece of something that they can connect to a website or to an app or at a physical event even, and get all kinds of exclusive value, whatever that means. Maybe at a Paris Saint-Germain soccer game, they can sit in a VIP area, get discount on merchandise, have you know, whatever. Even if you have some of the tokens for PSG, you can vote on the color and the message on the armband, the color of the jerseys they're going to wear. All these really cool things that allow community engagement. All of that is through this digital identity evolution, really, and innovation that we get through these digital assets that will be stored in these wallets. That's really the important thing to kind of start to understand. Not so much on the digital art side, although that is super fascinating and extremely important, because digital art is a wonderful market. The amount of what is being collected there is incredibly important. So that is not a space to be ignored either. But so much of Web3 is actually not necessarily visual. The NFT is simply that thing that is storing that. It's that digital asset that allows us to connect to all these resources. That's what's brilliant for marketers and brand and executives to understand moving forward.
Well, Ethan, thank you very, very much. It was incredibly interesting, and I'm sure that in the future we can make much more interviews, because it's such a huge topic and there is so much to discuss here.
Well, when you're next, you or your audience are next in Paris, Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 7, we are open at the NFT Factory. So do stop in, check us out. We would love to have a conversation with people about Web3 and how it's building really the future of brand and marketing and all these great things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.